Hey, long time no see. Lately, I've been reading the book Letting Go by Dr. Stephen Hawkins, and a very dear friend of mine gave it to me to borrow. I've been told to read it for years and years by another very dear friend, Susie, and it's been such a beautiful eye-opener for me, especially to read in conjunction with A Course in Miracles. I just wanted to talk a little bit about one of the main premises of the book, which is anything that we hold on to sort of creates a distorted lens through which we're going to use our experiences to be able to express or let out some of that energy that we've been holding on to. So what do I mean by that? For instance, if we have anger or grief or fear or desire that we have held on to from past experiences that we haven't felt safe enough or ready enough or conscious enough to let ourselves feel in the past, then when new experiences come up, we are going to be more likely to see those new experiences, see and feel and experience those new experiences through the lens of fear, through the lens of grief, through the lens of anger, through the lens of pride. These are all the lower energies, by the way, and I'll give a link to Dr. Hawkins' sort of hierarchy of energies, and it goes all the way from shame, which is the lowest vibration, up to enlightenment, which is the highest vibration. I think love, peace, joy, enlightenment are the highest ones, and the lowest ones are shame, guilt, apathy and depression, grief and fear, and then up to anger, pride. Courage is the tipping point, if you will, from the lower energies into the higher energies. And so we think that experiences validate us feeling certain things like anger or fear or grief or guilt. And the reality generally is that we have so much fear and grief and guilt and anger or these lower vibrations pent up in us because we haven't felt safe to feel them, or we've been we're afraid to feel them, right? Like afraid to feel the fear, that we actually unconsciously use new experiences as a way to release that pressure of those like built up feelings that we've been holding. So in other words, the reality is never the external circumstance. It's the lens that you're viewing it through. As in, the same circumstance can look 20 different ways depending on if you're viewing it through shame, through guilt, through anger, through courage, through acceptance, through love, through joy, through peace, through enlightenment. And you can test this for yourself, right? You can take any situation in your life and say, and notice objectively how you think you are feeling about it. Like, oh, this is how it is. Of course, this makes me angry. And notice, okay, well, clearly if I feel angry about it or I'm thinking angry thoughts, I'm perceiving this through the lens of anger. What does a situation look like if perceived through the lens of love, or if perceived through the lens of enlightenment? And it's really illuminating. It's like suddenly there's all these other options and possibilities and perspectives, and there's all this compassion and forgiveness and lightheartedness and longevity of vision. It's so beautiful. I'm going to show this to you. It's a beautiful sunset here. So I just didn't really get it before. Like I was very much like, why am I still having these experiences? A perfect example. So I recently, I've gone through a bunch of actually really hard things recently. And recently, one of my horses, my horse Stardust, has broken one of his legs. And yesterday, and I've had a lot of things happen that have just brought up so much grief in me. Like yesterday, just, several vets' recommendations was just that I put him down. And as experienced just from the lens of grief, I felt hopeless, like how will someone else save me? There's no other way that this can happen. I'm not okay with losing this. And I did a lot of work on it. And part of the work was also to feel the grief that was there, because part of this, the point of a lot of the things that have been happening to me lately, while a lot of them, like Stardust breaking his leg and also losing Peter, my dog Peter died very suddenly and tragically within the last few weeks. And of course, my go-to in experiencing these things, and not that it's not going to be very natural when some of my best friends in the world are dying and getting hurt, but is grief, and realizing, because that's my go-to with so many things that happen, grief and then fear and a sense of hopelessness, that I actually just have a lot of that stored up that I've been afraid to feel or haven't let myself feel from other experiences. And so then when something happens, that's the place that I go to, because I'm using current experiences to help relieve some of that pressure of guilt and fear that I'm holding. If I let go of the guilt and fear, then, and that, in order to let go, we have to literally go through feeling what we've repressed, whether it's something that's happening now or something that I've carried for a long time ago. So this is where that spiritual bypassing piece, we don't have to worry about that, because we do have to go through the feeling. So it's not about, purple washing the feelings and saying, oh, well, I know that Peter is always, like, I can't jump right to saying, I know that Peter is always with me now, so I'm good. And maybe I will be able to do that when I'm completely enlightened and I'm aware that all that seemed to separate us in separate bodies no longer has to, and we truly are always together now. Where I am now, though, I experienced a lot of grief from that, and so I do need to go through that grief. But in having this happen with Stardust, it really hit me, because there is a lot of grief, obviously, to be had there at the possibility of never riding Stardust again, of having to put Stardust down, of, Stardust not being able to be around without being in pain, and it being the kindest thing to put him down. But as I let go of grief and sadness and fear and anger as what seemed like the only feelings I could possibly feel from that situation, I actually experienced a lot of acceptance. Like, okay, I can accept maybe not getting to be with Stardust and letting him go. And then I can also come to this place of courage, coming up from, again, the grief to the fear, to the anger, to, courage. You kind of come up this ladder, and there's more energy given to you in each one, all the way up to love and enlightenment. So kind of coming to this place of realizing that I actually have a lot of other options, and this can be, maybe the problem is the solution, and that there is a different way that Stardust can be healed, that's a non-traditional way, and that maybe there's a different purpose that he has here that doesn't actually have to do with riding. And when it comes to who I really am and what I really believe about relationship with horses, it's not true that the only thing that they're here for is to be ridden by us. For sure, that's not true. So being able to begin to view the situation through a lens of courage, and through a lens of acceptance, and through a lens of willingness, like courage. Okay, I can handle this news. I can expand to realize that maybe there are other possibilities. And I can also be courageous enough to let go if the kindest thing to do is to put him down. I can be courageous enough to both accept saying goodbye and accept that we're not at the end of the line yet. And being in tune with him and where he's at, feeling what's true in those cases. Like with Peter, when I came upon him with what was happening in his last hours, I had to have the courage to let him go. There wasn't going to be anything that could be done. And realizing with Stardust that it's not to that point. But if I am only staying in grief, I don't have the courage to realize that there could be other ways, and I don't have the courage to act authentically also. And that's also where part of the anger is coming from, as far as the anger of helplessness, of lack of any kind of agency or empowerment. And, you know, when it comes down to either he's going to get put down, or then there really is nothing to lose by trying something else different, as long as I stay in touch with him and he lets me know that he isn't suffering too much to go on. So when we are willing to let go of believing that the situation is determining the way that we see it and feel about it, and instead realize that every situation can be viewed through every perspective of feeling, anywhere from the lowest, most restricted, disempowered vibration of shame, all the way up to the highest, most expansive, powerful vibration of enlightenment, love, enlightenment, joy, and peace. The situation is not determining our response or reaction. The inner world that we have cultivated, and how much we have the ability to be conscious and to let go of lower vibrations. And in order to let go of them, we feel them. That doesn't mean express them. This has been something that I've recently learned. It doesn't mean express them. So we don't express necessarily, you know, towards another person, for instance, anger or even sadness, because blame is not the game here. You know, we can express it if we need to write it or things like that. Or really, it's just, it's not even thinking about what it is, because that's part of it. And of course, in Miracles says this, right? I'm never angry for the reason I think I am. And just kind of realizing that with all of our feelings, as long as we are so cluttered up inside with things that we have held on to for the tiny, cheap payoffs we get about them, you know, feeling small, feeling vindicated, feeling righteous, feeling like a victim, feeling like a villain, these kind of cheap little thrills, as long as we are attached to holding on to something for that, over letting go for the gift of being able to see every situation through the feeling and eyes and lens of love, of peace, of joy, we're just really selling ourselves short. And keeping ourselves from seeing truth, because truth is always the most expansive, inclusive, enlightened, right? Which means the most light coming in perspective. That's truth, the most all-encompassing. And I just want to encourage you to let go and let you know that I'm on this journey with you. And as we let go of what we think we know, what we've been told, what we've felt like we have to hang on to, we open to infinite possibilities and the possibility of feeling and experiencing every situation through love. And when we do that, miracles happen. So maybe we could share them with each other.